There are many different models of didactic. I've presented earlier the didactic triangle, and that is perhaps one of the most straightforward ones. I still prefer a more extensive didactic model, sometimes referred to as teaching centered didactic. It was developed in Germany in the 1960s. But if we transform it to a higher education context and a modern context, I find that it can be helpful when analyzing teaching situations. And I say this because the model includes all the basic concepts of didactic, but it also includes the conditions for teaching. And the conditions for teaching is something most didactic models don't address. In the model, you find reflections on two levels. The first is a practical level, and the second level is a professional and organizational level. On a practical level, you have the intentions, the aims with teaching, the content to be taught, the methods of teaching, and the teaching media. And these four need to correspond to one another. In didactic, you always have the participants or the students and everything they bring with them, their experiences, their interests, their previous knowledges, and their questions. But students often study in groups, which means that we have sociocultural conditions that are created by the participants and also by the teacher. And sociocultural conditions might be called group dynamics. And we know that in some groups, these might be quite inspiring and it might be really fun to teach a certain group. And another group can be quiet or very laid back, and sometimes there may also be conflicts between participants or participants and the teacher, which contribute negatively to the sociocultural conditions. On the second level, we find professional factors, and professional factors relate to you as a teacher, your experiences, the field you work in, the field you research in, perhaps, the research you've read, everything you bring with you into the teaching situation. And then we have the conditional factors. And these are the ones that I find so important because, on the one hand, we have the professional factors, so we can consider you as a teacher, but we also have the organization that affects what you can do as a teacher. Under the conditional factors, we might list resources. What type of classroom or digital environment do you teach in? Do you have time to plan and develop your teaching practice? How much time do you have to assess students, to supervise them, to provide feedback? What kind of faculty support do you have? Is teaching something that you discuss with your faculty members? Is it something that you spend time with as faculty members? And we know that faculty support and, of course, different types of resources like time, but also IT support, for example, from Digi mentors and such, is really important if you want to develop your teaching practice, and specifically if you want to develop your digital teaching practice. Lastly, we have normative factors. And didactic is always conscious about what normative values we imbue in teaching. In our course descriptions, in our study programs, we have different values, we have different goals, aims, and so on, so on. And this is something we find important, something we want to highlight, something that we want our students to understand and perhaps um, to take with them as they study with us and after they've finished their studies with us. So these values, they can be more or less explicit, but it may be a good idea to think about the values you carry with you into your teaching practice and the values your study program or your discipline carries with it into the course descriptions and the study programs that you represent as a teacher.